Good morning, children. Today we are going to begin with the second chapter from the book First Flight. The name of the chapter is Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, written by Nelson Rohillallah Mandela. That means this Long Walk to Freedom, the extract of this chapter has been taken from his autobiography. The name of his autobiography, the book is Long Walk to Freedom. That means it talks about the system of apartheid, racial discrimination between the blacks and the whites, and how did the South African people gain their freedom from this system of apartheid. Let's start. Before we read, let's know what is apartheid. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. Can you say which of these countries named below had such a political system until very recently? We all know we are talking about South Africa. Have you heard of this man Nelson Mandela and his African National Congress? Mandela and his African National Congress spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. He had to spend 30 years in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. Democratic country, democratic elections, after that only it became a democratic country. In this extract, the complete chapter they are talking about, in this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela is talking about a historic occasion, that is the inauguration. Inauguration means setting up something new. They are setting up the new system of governance. The inauguration. Can you guess what occasion it might be? It is he was taking pledge. He was being sworn in as the first president of the democratic South Africa. So check your guess with this news item from the BBC of 10th May 1994. Today is 13th May, so we are reading the story right on time. Mandela becomes South Africa's first black president. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. 3 centuries, 300 years of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. For the first time, the blacks got so many seats. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Building's Amphitheater in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. Rule of one type of people, one kind of people by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. This is a piece of news published that day. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites and coloreds celebrating together. No more differences. No more differences on the basis of the color of your skin. More than 1 lakh South African men, women and children of all races sang and danced with joy. Before we begin with what the complete autobiography, what this extract is all about, let's read the summary of it once. Chapter sketch. This chapter has been taken from Nelson Mandela's book of the same name, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Long walk means the struggle, pain, sufferings and finally achieving freedom. So a long way. He had to spend almost 30 years in prison. It provides us a glimpse of the early life of Nelson Mandela, his education, 30 years in prison, and the pains he had suffered in his young age. The chapter recounts his fight for the freedom for his own people, blacks, who were tortured by whites. In this chapter, he gives two contradictory pictures of his country. One in which the blacks were tortured and suffered quietly. And the second picture, the blacks will be free to live the life of their own after the inauguration ceremony, after Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the first black president of South Africa. The major character in this story, the narrator, is Nelson Mandela himself, who has written about pains, sufferings, courage, and his experience and the values imparted. Okay, but still there are names of other characters in the story. Zinani, daughter of Nelson Mandela, who accompanied him in his inauguration day. On his inauguration day, she was very close to him. Thabo Mbeki, first deputy president of South Africa, who was also very close to Mandela, and Mr. de Klerk, second deputy president of South Africa. And this is the picture of the man we are talking about, Nelson Mandela. So the first activity is, in column A are some expressions you will find in the text. Make a guess and match each expression with the appropriate meaning from column B. The first expression is a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. Children, the meaning of this first phrase is the last one from the column B. Rainbow gathering is a beautiful, this one, first, second, third, fourth of, a beautiful coming together of various people like the colors in a rainbow. Okay, rainbow gathering, people coming together from different nations. The seat of white supremacy, come on, yes. The center of racial superiority. Then be overwhelmed with a sense of history, feeling very emotional. So overwhelmed, yes, last one. Feel very deeply emotional, remembering and understanding all the past events that have led up to that moment. So he's overwhelmed with the sense of history, all those events that led to this great achievement. Resilience that defies the imagination. The first one, a great ability to remain unchanged by suffering, not losing hope, goodness, courage. So unimaginable ability not to be changed by the sufferings. A glimmer of humanity, a sign of human feeling, goodness, kindness, pity, justice. So shine of these human feelings. Then a twilight existence, second one, a half secret life, like a life lived in the fading light between sunset and darkness. So finally, the lighter shine of light. Okay, like a life, a twilight existence, like a life lived in fading between the sunset and the darkness, from darkness towards sunlight. Okay, these phrases are used in his autobiography. So let's start. 10th May dawned bright and clear. 10th May was the day when he was to take the oath as the president of this democratic country, South Africa. For the past few days, Nelson Mandela himself is writing, it is his autobiography, that's why I had been pleasantly besieged, surrounded by dignitaries, people of high post, dignitaries, and world leaders who were coming to pay their respect before the inauguration. Inauguration, starting up something new. What is being set here? Setting up of the new system of government, electing the new system of governance, the democratic government, establishing the new democratic government in the country after 300 years of racial discrimination. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. For the first time ever, people from over 140 countries of the world were present. So this inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on this soil of South Africa. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. What is amphitheater? A building without a roof with many rows of seats rising in steps, typical of ancient Greece and Rome. So amphitheater. It has no roof, but the setup is as a staircase. Next. Everybody is able to see. So the ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria, the place in South Africa. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy. For decades, they have ruled for decades. Whites were considered superior and the blacks were considered inferior. They were never allowed to take part in the governments and the rule. They were considered as slaves. That system we are talking about. And he's explaining in his own, with his own experience, he has written what he has faced. So we are reading directly from the man who had been a part and parcel of everything that happened, and finally they received freedom. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. So otherwise only whites were allowed to come and sit here. Okay, they ruled the entire country. But today it was the site, a scene of rainbow gathering of different colors. All different colors, different people from different countries all over the world. Different nations who had come for what? For the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. Non-racial, first it was a racial government. Only whites were asked to make the government. They were the ruling authority. Now this was a non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On the podium, Mr. D. Clark was first sworn in as second deputy president. Nelson Mandela, the president, Mr. D. Clark, second deputy president, then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, Nelson Mandela says, when my turn came, what did I pledge on that podium? I pledged to obey and uphold to keep up. So I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. Republic, government of the public, for the public, by the public. Republic and its people. Okay, government of the public. It's not only of the dignitaries. Yes. To the assembled guests. So, in the sense, I pledged to obey every word of the Constitution, uphold it, and devote myself to the well-being of my people. To the assembled guest and the watching world, he said, these are the words he spoke while taking the oath. Today, all of us, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to the newborn liberty. All of us are present. We are witnessing such a grand event, and we are giving glory and hope that today we all are witnessing the day is no far, the country is going to progress. We give glory and hope to the newborn liberty. Liberty for the first time in the country on the South African soil. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster. that lasted too long. What extraordinary human disaster he's talking about? The system of apartheid, the system of racial discrimination. How can one human being consider other human being as inferior just because of the dark color of his skin? So this was really something extraordinary human disaster that lasted so long on this land. Must be born. So out of the experience of this disaster that lasted for so long in my country, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Today, I'm hopeful that after experiencing so much wrong in my own country, I expect that now a society will be born where everybody will be considered as equal without discrimination on the basis of caste, color, gender, poverty, rich, nothing. So, such a society of which every human being in the world will be proud. We means the blacks, the people of South Africa who were outlaws, who did not follow any law. So we were considered as outlaws. We who were outlaws, the meaning is given over here, children. We who were outlaws because of its policy of apartheid. Many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. So we, the people of Africa who were outlaws, not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege, this opportunity to be host to the nations of the world on our soil. We are privileged enough to today be the host for the leaders from all the nations, okay, the international leaders from all the nations to come to our land. So to host to the nations of the world on our soil for the first time. Otherwise, we were outlaws. We thank all of our distinguished, honorable international guests. We thank all the guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country, for sharing this great event, to take possession, for sharing this great event with the people of our country of what is today this inauguration. What is this? This is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. This inauguration, this democratic government, I am taking the oath. What is all this? This is a victory, a triumph of justice. That's justice, what is right. Justice means just means correct, right. So a victory of right, victory of peace, no more war, no more hatred, for human dignity. This is the victory of respect of human beings, not because they are of black color, not because they are of white color. So respect, dignity, human dignity, self-respect of human beings. So human dignity, that every human being who has been given birth by God has his own self-respect, respecting the fact. So this is the victory for justice. This is the victory for peace and for human dignity, for the respect of every human being who has been born, irrespective of caste, color, gender, rich, poor, nothing. We have at last, this is the speech, the original speech of Nelson Mandela on that day. We have at last achieved our political emancipation, freedom from restriction. So many restrictions were put on the blacks. They cannot rule in the government. They cannot be any minister in the government. They cannot do certain things. So this is, you cannot do. Now you can link it with the freedom of India, where Indians were oppressed by the Britishers. We received our freedom from the restrictions. What did the Britishers do to us? Indians are low class people. They cannot do this. They cannot become leaders. They are good for nothing. We are the ruling ones and you are the servants of Britishers. So that way you can understand. Achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves today. We take the pledge to liberate all our people, not only from this racial discrimination, we also pledge to liberate our people from the continuing bondage of poverty. We'll try to make the country progress in terms of financial security given to the people. So, bondage of poverty. We liberate our people from the bondage of poverty, from the bondages of deprivation, deprived of the rights given to them, rights as well as the privileges given to them. Deprivation, sufferings, gender discrimination, or any other kind of discrimination. We will liberate our people from the discrimination based on poverty. That is, you are rich, you are poor. Somebody who is deprived, people who are suffering on the basis of gender, male are best or females are not. So we will now liberate ourselves of all kinds of bondage and all kinds of discrimination prevailing in our society. Never, never, and never. So he's stressing upon the fact from now onwards, never will this happen. That has happened for decades. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. That one type of people are oppressing the another. Okay, again experience this kind of oppression of one kind of people by another. The sun shall never set. The sun will rise means there will be prosperity, great success, achievements by the people and by the country. So the sun shall never set. It will always rise on so glorious a human achievement. This is a glorious human achievement, not only in that country, all over the world, that God has not made us different. Then why did we create this difference, this system of racial discrimination, and oppressed the people? One type of people oppressed another only for the reason that they were black-skinned. Sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. Reign is rule. Let the freedom rule. God bless Africa.